He walked into the mountains to disappear, but the story behind Jeremiah Johnson is even stranger than the legend on screen. This wasn't just a movie. It was a survival ordeal fought against real storms, real danger, and a studio that tried to tame a story too wild for Hollywood. Actors nearly froze. A stuntman almost died. A real grizzly charged the crew. Redford vanished so deeply into the role that people said he came back different. And the men who inspired it all? Even darker. These are the hidden, brutal, unbelievable truths buried beneath the snow. Light the fire. The mountain remembers. Before anyone ever imagined Robert Redford trudging through blizzards with a rifle on his shoulder, this role, the soul of the film, was almost handed to Clint Eastwood. And that single decision became the first fracture line between what Hollywood wanted and what the story actually needed. Studio executives, blinded by the box office glow of Dirty Harry and the Men with No Name, pushed hard. They wanted a loud star. Not loud in volume, loud in presence, in mythology, in commercial weight. Eastwood was the safest possible bet. The obvious choice. The guaranteed win. But director Sidney Pollack saw the danger. Eastwood's myth was already carved in stone. You don't cast a monument to play a man who is erasing himself. So Pollack did something unexpected. He asked Robert Redford a single strange question. No pitch. No summary. No persuasion. Just, do you want to disappear? And Redford, without reading a word of the script, said yes. That was the moment the film's DNA locked into place. Because unlike Eastwood, whose characters dominate landscapes, Redford understood how to vanish into them, how to let silence speak louder than dialogue. Suddenly, the project shifted. It wasn't about charisma. It wasn't about gunfights. It wasn't about recognizable swagger. It was about stripping a man down to pure instinct, pure survival, pure myth. And from that moment forward, everyone involved realized one thing: this film was going to be a war against Hollywood expectations. A quiet film, made loudly. A disappearing act, made unforgettable. If the script demanded isolation, the production delivered it tenfold. The crew didn't just travel to the wilderness, they surrendered to it. Shooting took place nearly 8,000 feet up in Utah's Wasatch Mountains, where the air thinned, temperatures crashed, and every step felt like an argument with gravity. There were no roads to the set. No trailers. No heated tents. The only way up was to hike, lugging cameras, lighting gear, props, and sometimes even animals through terrain so steep the crew could barely speak while climbing. They slept in canvas tents that iced over during the night. Every morning, someone had to kick frost off their sleeping bag before crawling out. Fingers went numb. Batteries died instantly. Even firewood struggled to burn in the thin, frozen air. Redford didn't get the luxury of acting like a mountain man, he had to become one. Pollack insisted on realism, so Redford learned everything from skinning animals to setting primitive traps to starting fires with nothing but flint and stubbornness. He trained with local trappers until he could track a trail through snow the way city people read street signs. By the end of the shoot, Redford and the entire cast looked like they had been carved out of the mountains themselves, windburned, raw, hardened. Clothes hung looser. Movements slowed. Voices dropped. They weren't imitating survival on camera, they were living it. And that's why the film looks the way it does, not staged, not performed, but endured. Redford's total immersion created tension far beyond the mountains. The studio, sitting comfortably in Los Angeles, saw early cuts of the film and panicked. The first 20 minutes were almost wordless, just wind, snow, footsteps, and Redford's hollowed-out stare. Executives demanded narration. They wanted exposition, explanations, voiceover, anything to help the audience. Redford exploded. He threatened to pull his name, his likeness, even his support from the marketing campaign if a single line of narration was added. He argued that the silence was the story. That the audience needed to feel disoriented, alone, and uncertain, just like the character. Pollack backed him. The studio backed down. And then something unexpected happened. During test screenings, audiences didn't get confused. They leaned in. They focused. They felt the silence instead of resisting it. Redford proved something Hollywood rarely believes: if you trust viewers, even with quiet, they'll follow you deeper into the story than any narration could ever carry them. When Will Geer walked onto the set as Bearclaw, the crew quickly realized they weren't working with an actor, they were working with a living archive of frontier wisdom. Geer didn't just play a mountain mentor, he became one, folding real survival lessons into nearly every scene. Pollock often called action with no scripted dialogue, letting Geer wander into conversations with improvised lines pulled from decades of studying wilderness lore. How to track elk. How to read snow patterns. How to move through timber without alerting a soul. These weren't lines written by Hollywood, they were raw teachings from a man who adored the mountains. Redford followed his lead. Their best scenes feel spontaneous because they were two actors, unplanned, responding to wind, terrain, and each other. Pollock let the moments breathe, understanding that realism can't be storyboard, it has to be lived. And Geer, in his 70s, insisted on doing his own stunts. Riding through rough timber, climbing rock outcroppings, trudging through icy streams, he did it all himself, often refusing doubles even when the crew begged him to reconsider. The cold didn't scare him. Steep cliffs didn't shake him. He moved through the wilderness with the ease of a man returning to a long-lost home. After filming wrapped, cast and crew packed up and headed back to civilization. But not Geer. He stayed behind, choosing to spend several extra days alone in the mountains. For him, this wasn't just a role, it was a personal homecoming. Bearclaw wasn't something he performed, it was something he rediscovered. One of the most iconic images in the entire film is Redford standing alone, his beard crusted with ice, snow hammering his face as he fights against a world that wants him dead. Most audiences assume it's movie magic, makeup frost, wind machines, special effects. But the truth is far harsher, that moment was filmed in a real, punishing mountain blizzard. The production originally planned to cheat the shot with artificial snow, but every test looked fake. Pollock hated it. So when a brutal storm rolled over the Wasatch Range, he made a split-second decision: forget the studio schedule, get Redford ready and get the cameras rolling. The crew sprinted into the whiteout, battling winds that knocked tripods over and froze camera gears solid. Some lenses cracked from the temperature drop. Batteries died faster than they could be replaced. And Redford? He stepped into the storm with no stunt double, no protective brakes, no faked struggle. Within minutes, the cold wrapped around him like steel. His beard froze naturally. His breath crystallized midair. His eyes reddened from windburn. And that's when it hit him, not the cold, but the character. He said later that in that moment, for the first time, he understood the man he was playing, someone who had become part of the mountain, scarred by it, shaped by it, yet still standing. The footage Pollock captured that day wasn't acting. It was survival. And in a single image, the film's entire myth, harsh, unforgiving, majestic, was born. The 1970s were still a dangerous era for indigenous representation in Hollywood. Westerns leaned heavily on caricature, nameless hostiles, broken English dialogue, and one-dimensional enemies designed only to fall before the hero's rifle. Sidney Pollock refused to make another one of those films. From the beginning, he rejected every script note that pushed the story toward racist tropes. Instead, he insisted on casting actual Crow and Flathead actors, not extras in wigs, not stand-ins, but real members of the nations the script referenced. He hired indigenous consultants to oversee language, ceremonial gestures, hunting formations, and even battlefield tactics. Scenes were rewritten on the spot when consultants corrected historical details or pointed out cultural inaccuracies. Pollock didn't treat their input as optional, he treated it as canon. But the biggest tension came from the revenge storyline. The real liver-eating Johnson waged a brutal war against the Crow Nation, and Pollock knew portraying that literally would perpetuate violence without context. So he made a bold adjustment. He shifted the film from hatred to misunderstanding, from vengeance to survival, and finally to a fragile respect. This led to one of the film's most powerful additions, an unscripted moment when a Crow warrior chooses peace instead of death. No dialogue, no theatrics. Just a silent acknowledgement that both men have suffered enough. That single decision changes the film's entire tone. It transforms the story from a cycle of vengeance into a tale of endurance, humility, and shared humanity, something almost unheard of in westerns of that era. The grisly attack remains one of the most shocking scenes in the entire film, and that's because it nearly became a real-life tragedy. The production used a trained bear named Bart, a 1,000-pound animal who had worked safely in films before. The idea was simple: Bart would swipe, roar, and attack in choreographed proximity while Redford reacted. But animals, especially apex predators, don't care about choreography. On the first take, Bart missed his cue by just a few feet, but a few feet is the difference between a stunt and a mauling. He lunged too close, veered left, and slammed directly into the stunt coordinator, pinning him to the ground with the full weight of his massive body. Crew members froze. Trainers screamed. For a moment, everyone thought the man's ribs had shattered. Insurance stepped in immediately, demanding Bart be removed from production. No bear, no scene, no exceptions. Pollock fought back. He argued the bear was essential to the authenticity of the film, that the wilderness shouldn't be sanitized or replaced with puppets and rear projection tricks. Eventually, after frantic negotiations, Bart was allowed to return, under stricter supervision and with shorter, carefully timed takes. Redford's fear in the final cut. Completely real. He wasn't acting. He was standing a few yards from a creature capable of killing him in seconds, knowing firsthand how unpredictable the set had already become. That's why the scene feels raw, frantic, and primal. It wasn't a performance. It was a moment where cinema and danger collided, and survival wasn't guaranteed. Some scenes can be rehearsed. Some can be carefully crafted. But the moment Jeremiah discovers his murdered family, one of the most devastating scenes in the film, was captured in a single, unrehearsed take. Pollock made a radical choice. He gave Redford no direction, no emotional preparation, no blocking. He simply told the crew to roll cameras and let Redford walk into the cabin cold. Redford didn't know what he would see, what props would be there, or how the bodies would be arranged. Pollock designed the moment to ambush him emotionally. When Redford opens that door, his reaction isn't built from craft, it's built from shock. His breath catches. His eyes lock. His face goes slack in a way no actor can fake. The camera holds, refusing to cut, letting the grief unfold in real time. The entire crew felt the air shift. They all knew this was the take. Because there couldn't be another. Redford left the set for hours afterward. No jokes, no small talk, no reset. He walked into the tree line and disappeared until sunset. Pollock didn't follow. He didn't need to. He'd captured the emotional backbone of the film. That one take became the anchor for everything that followed. The isolation. The rage. The quiet soul loss that defines Jeremiah Johnson from that moment onward. It reminded everyone on set that authenticity wasn't just physical endurance, it was emotional exposure. And sometimes the hardest wilderness to survive is the one inside. And that leads to the perfect cinematic button. Some say Jeremiah Johnson died up there in the mountains. Others say he's still out there, living with the wind, watching the seasons change. A myth, born from reality. A legend that refuses to fade.